You know what? I'm really, really sick of your crap.
Why?
I'm not kidding. You listen to me. You and Carlos last night kept me up all night playing Hide the Cucumber. I don't even want to know where the hell you went in, Carlos. And now I'm running on like 2 hours of sleep because of you and a porcelain bird.
He loves me. Why do you love
What?
me? He loves me. He loves me.
Choke on it. Skip it up and that up. Review, I hate the PlayStation 5 USA. I don't. The community would want you to think that, but I don't. But if you realize that I'm just objective or try to be as objective as possible and try to have common sense, make sure you hit that subscribe button and also hit the bell to get notifications of all of my newest uploads. Thanks a bunch. And this fake bird thanks you too. He's back for now. He wanted to come out of retirement. He's the Floyd Mayweather of birds. So I'm going to make something abundantly clear. Two things. I actually really enjoy the PlayStation 5. I have a super cool video coming up regarding the PlayStation 5 and a projector. Shout out to Anchor for sending out the Nebula 2. And it's not even a sponsored video. You're going to get to see some interesting stuff and get some interesting takes on their projector and to see me playing PlayStation 5 on my ceiling, which is absolutely awesome. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But I think the PlayStation 5 is a perfectly fine system. Like I always say, if I could only choose from one next-gen console, it would be the PlayStation 5. Obviously, for the exclusives, I like the UI. I just like the overall experience that Sony gives you with the PS5. I think it feels, bugs aside, I think it feels the most next-gen. When you put on, like my son has an Xbox One in his room that he watches YouTube on, and the old VCR Xbox One, and you look at the Series X, the interface isn't that much different. Obviously runs a hell of a lot quicker, but it's not that much different. You turn on the PlayStation 5, you feel like it's a whole next-gen experience from head to toe. A flawed one, albeit, but definitely next-gen. I'm sure Microsoft will tweak the Series X's UI over time and the Series S's UI over time, but it just feels like the Xbox One, just with upgraded hardware, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but, you know, if you're expecting next gen right out of the box, at least from the UI perspective, you're going to be disappointed. And plus, there's no games on the Xbox consoles that are games you can't get anywhere else right now. That too. Well, Biomutant is a game that's going to be released tomorrow. And keep this in mind as I say it. I want to be fully transparent to make sure people realize I'm being objective. This is it's an 8th gen console game that's just running in backwards compatibility mode as of now on the 9th gen consoles. So keep this in mind as I describe to you what's going on. Just want to make that abundantly clear. Well, the interesting thing is that Biomutant, again running in backwards compatibility mode on the PS5, actually only reaches 1080p and it's upscaled to 4K. Whereas on the Xbox One X and Series X, the game will run at 4K 60 with dynamic resolution. And on the Series S, it will run at 1440p at 30 FPS. So it's kind of like it just makes you scratch your head and think, all right, this is the PlayStation 5. I get this is a backwards compatible game, but why am I only getting 1080p when Microsoft, that version of the game, on the Series X, it actually runs at higher resolutions? Well, anyway, THQ Nordic explained this on Twitter. Kind of a short explanation, but this is what they had to say. Due to technical reasons, we've deactivated native 4K on PS5 for the release version of the game. It also said this: neither are current gen versions, but the PS4 Xbox One version already performs better on current gen due to more powerful hardware. Native version for the current gen consoles are coming, but we can't share any more details yet. And this could be because when you have an upgraded version of a game for the PS5, it actually requires a fully native port, whereas when, say, Microsoft wanted to make Titanfall 2 run 120 FPS, it just requires a patch. So how Sony and Microsoft handle how backwards compatible games run is different, and that could be just the case with Biomutant. And plus, I'm also hearing this game is not that great anyway, so There's that too, so you're not missing out on much, but it's still interesting to see that the game doesn't run as good on the PS5 in backwards compatibility mode, at least at this time, nonetheless. And also, developer CI Games a while back had an issue developing the PS5 version of Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts 2. And this is what they had to say about the PlayStation 5 version. It's actually being delayed due to technical reasons. This is what they had to say. It is with regret that we must today announce the delay of the PlayStation 5 version of Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts 2. This is the result of unforeseen technical issues that we've only recently discovered. This will not affect the launch date of the other announced platforms. This game is still set to release as planned on PS4, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and PC on June 4th, 2021. And we are very confident with how the game performs on these other platforms. We have a highly experienced and dedicated team working hard to ensure the PS5 version meets a similarly high standard. All PS4 versions will include a free digital upgrade to the PS5 version, ready to download upon its release, to ensure PS5 players can still enjoy the game on the 4th of June. As a gesture of goodwill in light of this news, we have decided to release the first major DLC, a new and extensive region complete with brand new contracts, free of charge to the entire player base across all versions, including PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, and PC. This is currently in development, with more news on its release coming soon. Once again, we would like to sincerely apologize for the delay and assure you, our valued community, that we are doing everything to resolve it as soon as feasibly possible, but with consideration for our already hardworking team. We thank you for your understanding and hope you will enjoy our latest sniping experience, the CI Games team. Now, shout out to Astel over on Twitter. I know people are going to say, Rich, he leans more towards Microsoft. That's fine. It is what it is. That's why I cited articles and cited sources and not just him. But shout out to him. He's a good news source nonetheless. He's thinking that the variable clock frequencies of the PlayStation 5 could be the reason that developers are having a tough time developing games for it. Now, Biomutant, that's a different story. That's probably just a backwards compatibility thing because Sony makes it tougher they don't just let you patch games to make them run better on the next gen hardware. I'm sure in the future they'll fix that, but with Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts 2, it seems like there's some other issues they're coming across. Now, we've heard in the past before that the variable frequencies or the variable clock speeds they could use on the CPU and GPU, because it runs with variable clock speeds inside the PlayStation 5, could cause issues. This has been something before the console has even been released. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at an article from WCCFtech.com where variable clocks will force devs to make choices. Only first party will truly utilize the SSD. And the talk of the PlayStation 5's variable clock speeds for the CPU and GPU being a problem for developers has been talked about for a while, actually. Quite a while. As a matter of fact, this article comes from March 18th, 2020, and this is John Lindemann over at Digital Foundry. He says this on Twitter. Sure, only first-party games will truly utilize those speeds, but multi-platform games are still going to be made with SSD in mind. I mean, we went from 50 to 100 megabits last gen to 2.4 gigabytes a second and 5.5. That's a massive leap. And then someone asks him, though, but this won't translate into anything except for maybe slightly faster first-party games? The SSD speed for both consoles is more than enough for games. And he says absolutely not saying otherwise. So yeah, obviously the raw difference in speed with the PlayStation 5's SSD is still going to make games load faster, but it's really only going to be the first-party games that really utilize the SSD maybe to make it a more expansive world because, yeah, third-party games are going to have to cater to the lowest common denominator. And as much as I'm pro-PC, let's keep it real, they're going to have to cater to the guy who's still using SATA SSD as his drive to play games off of, who doesn't have those insane 2.4 gigabytes a second or 5.5 gigabytes a second I/O speeds on the next gen SSDs that are inside the Series X and PlayStation 5. The PlayStation 5 has the 5.5 gigabyte a second SSD. Keep that in mind. That's it has a faster SSD than the Series X. And someone also asks John about the variable clock speeds. This is what someone asks him. Also, what are your thoughts on the variable clock speeds versus the static clock speeds in the Series X? I personally think Microsoft is right on the money about the console experience being tied to 100% predictable results. And John replies with this: PS5 is predictable, but it forces developers to make choices that won't be necessary on the Series X. I think fixed clocks are a better choice, but in this case, we'll see how it goes. And yeah, we still have to see how it goes. Talking about a couple games where one game, Biomutant, may just be that Sony has to step up their backwards compatibility game doesn't mean this is the end of the world for the PlayStation 5. But nonetheless, it's still interesting to see that devs are having technical issues with the console. So in the end, only time will tell. We did hear murmurs for quite a while that there was going to be issues with the variable clock speeds of the CPU and GPU inside the PlayStation 5. How severe will they be? It's still too early to tell, but the fact that we have a couple games that seem to might be having issues due to it is interesting. But again, this doesn't even mean doom and gloom for the PlayStation 5 anyway, because the PS2 was an absolute nightmare to program for, and it wasn't even it was the least powerful console of the 6th generation. But because it had the biggest install base, had the most popularity, it still was way more successful than the original Xbox or GameCube. Way more successful. So even if it's tougher to develop for the PlayStation 5, it's still, at least from a console installation perspective, meaning how many people actually buy the system, it's probably going to be top dog. So guess what? Even if it's tough to develop for, developers will find a way because the money is there. So if you're a PS5 owner or a PS5 fanboy, you have nothing to worry about. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one, baby.
Hey, if you enjoy my content, consider becoming a Review Tech USA member. I'll have a link below in the description. I live stream now on this channel all the time, and it gives you access to cool emoticons to use as well while I live stream. Again, link below in the description. Thank you for your continued support.